when I was had the list of who was reading today, and I was showing it to my friends and trying to get people to come, so thank you for coming. One name popped out for a few people. They said, "You got Jim Peacock coming to read? That's fantastic. He's a legend in Port Moody." And in his memoir, Remembering the Good Times, he writes about 50 years of living in Port Moody, his career in journalism, but also he helped build this library. He helped raise funds to build it, so thank you, Jim, for helping to build my favorite place. So, Jim Peacock.
Thank you very much, Eric. I saved files over years and years and years, and they're summarized in this memoir called Remember the Good Times. It's been a fun experience to go through. I wanted to say especially a thank you to Eric for all the effort he's put into making this event happen and for including me in it, and to the library for making the venue available for the purpose. As you heard, I've been a long-time resident of the Glen Eyre and then Newport Village in Port Moody, but I now live in a retirement residence in Port Coquitlam, so I haven't gone very far. I've had a long association with this library, as was mentioned. The painting that's hanging on the post over here of the Pleasant Side Grocery was something that the artist who did it and my late wife Jean and I presented to the library as a piece of the city's history. As you've also heard, I spent 15 years as a journalist. That experience fills a lot of the chapters in the memoir. I want to mention two highlights from that experience, then read from one chapter. I happened to be assigned to the New York Bureau of the Canadian Press back in 1963, and our CP Washington correspondent at the time was out of town, and when the news broke of the Kennedy assassination, he was sent to Dallas. I was sent to Washington to cover the aftermath of that, and was at the White House when the funeral cortege departed on that fateful day, and certainly the covering the aftermath of the Kennedy assassination was the biggest news event in my 15 years of writing, reporting, and editing. Before that, I was stationed here in Vancouver, living in Port Moody, and working out of the CP Bureau in the city. And I had a date with Lena Horne. The event happened with the help of a man I encountered many times in many ways in this community. And I'm happy to say he's still around at this moment, well into his 90s. His name is Ben Koplow, and his career included a publicist for the Cave Theatre restaurant in Vancouver. He was also an actor, an agent for performers, and a superb organizer of special events involving live entertainment. And then now to pick up from the chapter in the book, the cave was officially opened in 1937. By the time I was meeting with its performers, the cave was owned and operated by Ken Stauffer and his nephew, Bob Mitten. Its license was for 600 people, but it often crammed in 1,000 to see and hear the likes of Johnny Cash, Ray Charles, Tony Bennett, Louis Armstrong, Robert Goulet, Fats Domino, Ella Fitzgerald, Bette Midler, Ike and Tina Turner, Liza Minnelli, and Mitzi Gaynor. It also supported many local performers, including a large house band that was led by saxophonist Fraser McPherson. Thanks to Ben Koplow and the owners, I interviewed Lena Horne during a rehearsal for one of her performances there. From that interview, I wrote the following as published July 19, 1962 in the Victoria Daily Times. Lena Horne, her bangs tucked beneath a Little League baseball cap and her slim, shapely figure disguised by a loosely hung cardigan, was musing at this rehearsal about nightclub audiences. They've been pretty consistent for me, she said, recalling 22 years of performing in cabarets around the world. It started as a single in Cafe Society in New York in 1940, and even in those days, let's see, my kids were still babies, I seemed to sing to a more adult audience. In the trade, we call it a whiskey and wine crowd. And I don't mean to be fresh, it just means they don't drink much straight Coke. I never was one to attract a teenage audience. From across the room at the cave, Miss Horne might have been a teenager herself. The blue baseball cap, the white cardigan, the flat-heeled shoes, the eyeglasses and beige slims she wore offered a very sharp contrast to the skin-tight sari that wrapped her elegant figure the night before when she kept an audience of 600 so attentive you could hear a whisper. In either costume, the 45-year-old Miss Horne showed no visible signs of those many years or of the cares of raising two children, Gail, now 25, and Tommy, 22. Remember, that was back in 62. Miss Horne, who worked cabarets and hotel rooms about 22 weeks a year with conductor husband Lenny Hayton and her trio of musicians, said she's selfish about the places she works. I'm more likely to take much less money to work someplace I like, she said, explaining that she limits her appearances to spots like the Coconut Grove in Hollywood, the Waldorf in New York, the Fairmont in San Francisco, and the Sands in Las Vegas. Asked how the Cave falls in with this impressive company on her list, Miss Horne said, I worked here years ago, it was 12 years before that, and they treated me kindly. I like it here, I like the room. When I become familiar with the room, it's like a pair of old shoes or sweater. It's comfortable. Now, just footnotes to that. Lena Horne died in 2010 at the age of 92 after a 70-year career as a singer, dancer, and actor. The Cave was located at 626 Hornby Street in Vancouver. It closed in 1981, was demolished, and the site saw a parking garage and a bank open there. Thank you very much.